Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to Fresh Outlook, the show where we're talking about what you're talking about. I'm your host, Taryn Brill, but just call me TWB. Happy New Year, and welcome to our very first show of 2013. Well, it's a new year kicks off. We thought we'd tackle some new topics, along with some from 2012 they're still at the forefront. So we'll begin today by covering the latest in the Fiscal Cliff, who wins and who loses. From there, we'll look into the brand new Congress that was just sworn in, what's on their agenda, and of course the latest on the Sandy relief bill. Then we'll look back at 2012, the year in words. From words like malarkey to Gangnam Style, we'll see what topped the list. We'll also take a look at 2012 in terms of social media. Then we'll look back at those we lost last year, their legacy, and why they will be so dearly missed. Finally, we'll end the show on a high note by discussing the best news stories of 2012, those that uplifted us and had some positive impact. But before we get the conversation started, as always, let's meet our all-star panel, starting with the one and only W.J. O'Reilly.
Good day. W.J. O'Reilly. I'm the headmaster of the Hanal School, and I'm also a partner with Harvard College in its Center for Public Interest Careers.
Welcome. Up next, J.B.P.
Wow, I'm James B. Peterson, Director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University and a contributor to thegrio.com.
Welcome, as always, and FM on the dial.
That's right, on your radio dial. Francesca Maxime. I'm a news anchor here at Ebru TV and also the author of Rooted, a verse memoir.
Terrific. Great to have you guys always. Happy New Year. Here's
Happy
to our
New
first
Year.
show of
Yeah,
2013.
how about that?
And as the year came to a close, whether or not we took the plunge over that proverbial fiscal cliff, it turned out to be a real nail biter. I have no nails left. Alas, at the midnight hour, a deal was reached. Take a look.
A late-night vote has finally averted the fiscal cliff. The House of Representatives passed emergency legislation to prevent deep spending cuts and even bigger tax hikes from taking effect.
Thanks to the votes of Democrats and Republicans in Congress, I will sign a law that raises taxes on the wealthiest 2% of Americans while preventing a middle-class tax hike that could have...
The bill's passage on a 257 to 167 vote sealed a hard-won political triumph for the president.
Under this law, more than 98% of Americans and 97% of small businesses will not see their income taxes go up. Millions of families will continue to receive tax credits to help raise their kids and send them to college. Companies will continue to receive tax credits for the research that they do, the investments they make, and the clean energy jobs that they create. And 2 million Americans who are out of work, but out there looking, pounding the pavement every day, are going to continue to receive unemployment benefits as long as they're actively looking for a job.
Several people on both sides have seen the consequences of dragging out a fight to the last minute in a very public way. And I think what we'll see is, while it will be definitely difficult and contentious over the next few months, we may not see a repeat of what we saw in last August and what we saw this week.
Hey guys, if you ask me, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is a Band-Aid. Hey, I'm glad they figured out the tax situation, sort of, but there's like 3 more cliffs that we're about to go, Obama's about to face. The budget resolution, the deficit reduction, those big spending cuts, the sequester, which you hear a lot on the news. So how do you guys feel? I mean, were you happy? Were you annoyed?
Well, we called it here. We predicted that there would be an 11th hour, 12th hour solution, and that's exactly what happened.
Is it a solution?
Well, I see it. Listen, we're
safe
in the moment, and I see this as a win-win. I mean, everyone is, I think, paying a bit more, and those who can pay a lot more are going to be paying a lot more. And I think that's the way this ought to have turned out. We can't predict what's going to be happening. I think in these successive cliffs, I don't want to get that far ahead of ourselves right now. But I think we'll weather this one.
I think this is going to generate about $600 billion in revenue. It's interesting from a political perspective because no cuts were on the table for this deal.
No.
So it's a very, if there's a winner here, Obama certainly is the winner, and those folk who want to be a little bit more calculative about how we sort of manage the cutting process, the budget cutting process. But $600 billion in revenue is not enough, actually. We need actually another $600 billion over the next 10 years to make ourselves even feasible from an economic standpoint. So I don't know where that tax revenue is going to come from, but that's going to be interesting to think about. I don't think that the debt ceiling is a fiscal cliff kind of discussion, or at least it shouldn't be. The debt ceiling should not be a political discussion at all. It's actually...
Well, we need to borrow more, otherwise we're going to default all of our payments.
We're talking about raising it right now. It's about paying for things we've already done. So it doesn't make much sense for us to think of that as affecting spending going forward, right? So I'm not sure how it's all going to play out, but I don't think we should categorize the sort of debt ceiling discussions as a fiscal cliff kind of piece of the process.
Okay, what do you think, Francesca?
I think that, it could have gone a lot further. I mean, we have an extension of unemployment benefits, for example, for another year. That's good. It keeps the 10 million Americans that are currently unemployed, that are still eligible for benefits, having some money coming in, which they sorely need in order to get back on top. But the thing is, it really didn't go, even though you'll hear a lot of wealthy people talk about, this is harming their pocketbook.
They're not going to donate money
It didn't,
anymore.
I mean, and they're changing in income taxes, and they're changing in payroll tax, and their changes in those percentages, and they'll say, oh, we can't pay our workers as much as we used to. Well, those people are going to get bigger stock options, and they're just going to be paid differently. Yes, they're going to be compensated differently. We're up to what, 39.6% now for the 450, the Clinton tax rates. We're back to that, but that's a far cry from the 70% tax rates that we had in 1971, and a far cry from the 90% tax rates that we had in 1950. So all these people that are saying, oh, we're crying, we came out of a recession and taxed the rich at higher rates because we needed to rebuild the country and rebuild the economy after the war. And we're not doing that now. All of the people, the government is really getting all of its money from individual taxpayers. We don't tax corporations the way that we should. I would like to see all of those kinds of things go into a real deal if we wanted to talk about things that could help the economy and help the American people and not drag them down so individually.
But then you'd have billionaires applying for citizenship in Russia the way
So they say. So they say.
Well, I mean, but I'm just saying that the billionaires aren't that threatened that they're considering leaving.
Right.
The billionaires made $241 extra billion last year than they would have. They made a heck of a lot more money. Do you know you could pay half, 5 million of the people that are currently on unemployment a $50,000 a year salary with that money, in 2012 that they made exclusively.
Right.
I mean, you could actually turn people around and get them back to work and get the masses together again if you didn't make it so easy for people that were already billionaires, really wealthy, to make money.
A couple things. I mean, there's a little controversy. Obama said he wanted to raise taxes on the rich at $250,000. Obviously, he didn't hold that end of the bargain. Now it's in the $400,000 range. Also, you mentioned that the payroll tax, the expiration of this 2-year Social Security payroll tax. What does that translate into? Someone earning $50,000 is about to pay $1,000 a year more in federal taxes. So it's something to say, okay, we averted the cliff, but everyone is going to be affected by these taxes. I mean, because no one's talking about the payroll tax, but $1,000 is significant for someone making $50,000.
It is. I mean, we have to reform our tax code. I mean, we need something actually even more progressive than what we have right now. We do need to tax wealthier people at a little bit of a higher rate just to make our economy more whole. And it's just to sort of correct what has happened over the last 20, 30 years. When you look at wages amongst everyday Americans versus like executive wages in the top 2%, their income has gone up steadily and ours has stagnated. And so we have to correct that a little bit just to make things a little bit more fair and balanced. And that requires comprehensive tax reform. I'm not sure if we have the stomach for that right now.
Sounds like wealth redistribution to me, guys. Sorry.
Actually, no.
That's not going to play well with
Wait. The wealth has been redistributed upwards for the last 20 to 30 years in executive compensation, in tax breaks for corporations. And so we've got to correct that. So that's not redistribution. That's actually just fairness based upon the redistribution that's happening.
Something else we need to correct, many are saying, is when there's a natural disaster such as Superstorm Sandy, how it takes 9 weeks to vote on legislation. It's a headline that really has a lot of people's blood boiling. We talked a little bit about Congress. The headline everybody can't seem to get over is the $60 billion Hurricane Sandy relief bill that was delayed in the House earlier in the week. They finally voted on it yesterday, part of the bill. Take a look.
It's been a long week for the House Majority Leader.
The motion is adopted without...
Late Tuesday, John Boehner helped pass a bill to avoid sending America off of a fiscal cliff. But he seemed to forget about a vote on another important bill, a relief package for the victims of Superstorm Sandy. After promising a vote to approve $60 billion in aid for states damaged by the storm, Boehner canceled the vote and found himself at the center of another storm. Representatives from both sides of the aisle criticized his decision. Perhaps none felt the sting more than New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who apparently phoned Boehner 4 times on Tuesday night to urge him not to cancel the vote.
There's only one group to blame for the continued suffering of these innocent victims: the House Majority and their Speaker, John Boehner.
Boehner has since rescheduled the vote for Friday, when House representatives will likely approve a $9 billion down payment. A second vote is scheduled later this month for the remaining $51 billion.
Do you guys regret not bringing up the Sandy?
Right, so just a quick update, as everybody knows, they did pass that $9.7 billion bill to cover the insurance claims for so many of the victims. January 15th is the next deadline, where apparently we're waiting to approve the other $51 billion or so. Now, you've heard so many people are coming out saying this is outrageous, it's disgraceful. The Katrina victims didn't have to wait this long. What is going on? I mean, this is really, despicable, to use one word to categorize it.
It is politics. I mean, part of the reason why the funds moved a little bit quicker for Katrina was because the awful way in which the federal government responded to that particular disaster. What's happening here is pure politics. Essentially, what you have is you have a speaker who was under political duress for all the different fiscal cliff reasons we just talked about in the last segment, and he couldn't see politically how he could put on the table a vote for $60 billion when actually, when we talk about that $600 billion in new revenue, it's just $60 billion per year. And so this package at $60 billion actually would have spent all of the tax revenue, all the additional tax revenue that they had just voted in. He knew that he couldn't get his caucus to buy into that. And that's where you get to that $9 billion.
You think he was right in not?
He wasn't right. It's just that politically it was impossible from his perspective to actually make that vote happen. The sad part about this $9 billion piece is that, this is money that's actually owed to the folk who paid insurance. It's not like we're giving them anything.
It's flood insurance money,
Exactly.
and that's the real problem. And I mean, you had Chris Christie saying he tried to talk to him 4 times. He tried to call him 4 times, Speaker John Boehner, to try to get in touch with him about what was happening on this deal. He ignored his calls, and then he said he talked to him the next day. He didn't disclose exactly the contents of that conversation, but the bottom line was he was promised something that he was not given. That's Christie. That was his bottom line, and he, as you see, was furious about it, and I can't blame him. And we've seen Democrats and Republicans from Connecticut, from New Jersey, and from New York, from the tri-state area, all come out and say this is politics run amok. This is ridiculous. People's lives are at stake. They're still without power. And as James said, they already paid into this. This is for flood insurance money. This is for this is money. This is this is only $9 billion that they already paid into.
Right.
You're going to see resistance for the second piece of this as well.
You think?
You're going to see a lot of folks saying it's filled with pork. They don't want to
Well, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this pork,
because
if you look at the numbers in the House who voted for this $9 billion package, 354 to 76. So why did those vote? Why did the people that vote against it? Why did they do so?
They're Republicans.
And
They
basically,
they're
Republican, but they're saying there's all this pork,
well, there's no
all these
pork
things.
in the $9 billion, but they voted against it because there's nothing to offset it. And for them, when you talk about this whole package of $60 billion, it just doesn't make economic sense from their perspective. But again, this is just politics, right? We got to help the people that are in need. The $9 billion is already theirs. You're talking about pork. I mean, really, out of the $60 billion, I think there's somewhere around $200 million total that they're categorizing as pork. Some of this money is about building infrastructure and anticipating things going forward.
Well, right. I have a whole list here. I have 2 pages worth of the expenditures that they're saying aren't necessary.
Like Alaska or something.
$230,000 to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to replace 3 vehicles and furniture. I mean, that's just one. $499 million in the Corps of Engineers construction funds for disasters occurring before a storm. I mean, so a lot of people think
that piece to me is really important. That's not
$2 million to fix museum roofs in Washington. I mean, I could. There's
but
that
happens in any bill. I mean, that happens. There's pork in everything.
That's so trite.
At the end of the day, well, it's inefficient government, and it's also
let's put a stop to it.
Well, that's fine, but don't stop Sandy just because there's a little bit of this. I mean, if you're going to take a stand on that issue, there's a million opportunities to do it. This isn't one of them.
Right.
I tend to step back and look at the big picture on this. Could Chris Christie have done any more for himself in the stance that he's taken on this? And could the Republican Party have done any less for itself in the way that it's responded to this tragedy?
Well, Chris Christie, since Sandy, has become a champion of American politics because he's willing to work across the line, critique across the line, critique his own party.
A Star is born.
He tells it the way it is.
And we called that too. We did. You go back a few weeks and you played a show a few weeks ago. We were calling. We anticipated.
I wish we had that instant replay.
Well, we did, because we know that Christie, although he's a Republican, is governor of a very blue state, and he's just a smart politician. I don't agree with everything that all of his positions, but very smart politician. And what he's offering is what America really, really desires, which is his capacity to critique his own, challenge the other side, and actually he's looking much more like an independent than a Republican.
That's what I said.
something
like
that the country
like Bloomberg,
also,
like, you know, like
hopefully
Lieberman,
not
like
like Bloomberg.
Specter, like,
Hopefully
well, no,
not.
they've switched
Hope-
parties and
something
stuff,
that
you know.
the word desire, something that the country also seems to desire is a brand new Congress. This is the most diverse Congress in history. The 113th Congress was sworn in earlier this week. Lots of firsts in terms of demographics. Hello, women.
Yes.
Take a look.
Boehner. 90 freshman lawmakers were sworn in today on Capitol Hill as part of the 113th Congress. In the House, there will be 234 Republicans to 201 Democrats. Over in the Senate, the Democrats strengthened their majority with 55 to Republicans' 45.
To the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. May God bless you.
Even with a handful of GOP defections, Ohio Congressman John Boehner was reelected Speaker of the House. This marks his second term, and already he was laying out a road ahead in the very near future.
Our government has built up too much debt. Our economy is not producing enough jobs. And these are not separate problems.
But this Congress should be careful not to repeat the political rancor of the 112th edition.
There are going to be several members of Congress who are going to pay the price for what's happened this week, be it through a primary challenge from the left or from the right, or during a general election debate for a congressman who was too difficult or unwilling to waver, or perhaps a congressman who did waver from his principles.
Well, I have to say, as a woman, I couldn't feel
Girl
more
power.
pride, right? I mean,
20
women senators.
Still not where we need to be. We need to be a
No.
lot closer to 50.
But it's a step in the right direction.
It absolutely
Well,
is.
the whole congressional delegation in New Hampshire, I think everybody in New Hampshire is a female.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, to WJ's point this week, one thing that's interesting about this Congress is, and last week we were talking about Congress needs to be more representative of America. Congress is now a little bit more representative of America.
Well, also we have the first Buddhist, the first Hindu, the first open bisexual.
LGBT, yep.
We said 20 female senators. By the way, did you see how they photoshopped in?
Yeah,
they took
yeah.
if you didn't hear
Yeah,
about it,
that
they
was
took
hilarious.
a picture of all the new female senators, and 4 were late. So Nancy Pelosi has stood by her decision to what's the word?
She took the
She
picture
photoshopped them
and photoshopped and put them in.
after the fact. She's like, look, we all have busy schedules. What can we
And
do?
it was cold out there too.
Yes,
Right.
she said we could.
The other thing is in the 1313th Congress that was just voted in is that there are a lot of active veterans, veterans of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. So it'll be interesting to see what their perspective, having had those boots on the ground, what it'll bring.
Right.
I
And
think
that
diversity
said,
is.
we've got to go
You gotta
to
move.
break.
All right.
Gotta go to break.
You can move during the break, but we have to move to the break. Up next on Fresh Outlook, we'll tackle 2012 from a linguistic perspective. We'll look back at the year in words as well as the year in social media. Stay with us. You're watching Fresh Outlook.